Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Coffee Time Bible Study. Good morning, Kaylee. How are you?
Good morning. A little wore out from the weekend, but we're here. We're kicking.
Yep, those weekends are tiresome. I know I'm tired.
Yeah.
So we had a nice little family get together on Saturday, and then visited more family on Sunday and came back upstate. So Kaylee, you had a 4-hour drive. I had a 2.5-hour drive.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's an undertaking when we go downstate, but it was fun, had a good time, and it's always good to be with family and friends. So
Yep.
Last week we were discussing the plagues of Egypt, and it helped us to understand the plagues of Revelation, and we went through that a little bit to see the differences in the severity between the two and how they were related but yet different. And we explained all that in these last couple Bible studies, that the plagues were plagues of the specific location, such as in Egypt. And while the plagues of Revelation are global catastrophic events. And the plagues of Egypt were redemptive wrath, which means it is aimed at inflicting suffering to bring about change. And it's an act to correct, protect, reform, and restore. That is love or righteous anger. And it was meant to show the Egyptians and the Israelites that God was the one true God. Good morning, Sister Brittany.
Good morning.
God intended these plagues to bring about a reconciliation to him and growth for the Israelites to prepare their mindsets for what was about to come, the Exodus. And that's what we're going to be getting into next. We walked through last week the seals, the trumpets, and the bowls. And the seals are opened one by Jesus the Lamb, who is alone the one worthy to be able to unlock and break the seals on God's scroll. I wanted to just recap those once again, because I think it's so important that we understand those. So I just did a little summary of a recap on those, and I'm just going to read through it. So the first seal was the white horse. And if we can remember any of these and get those in our memory, it helps us to understand them more. So the first seal was the white horse, which represents the conquest over sin, victory. The second seal was the red horse, which represents war and bloodshed. The third seal, the black horse, represents famine and inflated high prices for basic food, while the price for luxury items remain untouched. This was also a prophecy that we are going to be reading in 2 Kings chapter 7 tomorrow in our prayer line in the morning. So this is a prophecy, this black horse with representing famine and inflated prices for luxury items, not just any item, but luxury items that you would be paying a whole lot of money for are now just for pennies. So that's what that fourth seal will come about. And the fourth seal is a pale horse and represents death and pestilence. The rider's name is Death, and Hades is close behind. That's the fifth seal. The sixth seal is upheaval. Good morning, Sister Ayana. Upheaval represents global terror and the impending wrath to come. Earthquake strikes, the sun turns black, the moon turns red, and stars fall. Rulers and leaders hide in caves. terrified of the wrath of the Lamb. The seventh seal, there was a silence in heaven for a half hour, and the silence before the storm. Wrath is beginning, intercession has stopped, and the golden censer is cast down to the earth, where there will be peals of thunder, rumblings, flashings of lightning, and an earthquake. Those are the seals. So as we know, on that seventh seal, when the golden censer is cast down, that starts a whole nother chain of events. The people were praying for peace and safety and eating and drinking. And this is in Matthew 24:36. Jesus is talking to his disciples, but about that day or hour, no one knows, not even the angels in heaven, nor the Son, but only the Father. As it was in the days of Noah, so it will be at the coming of the Son of Man. For in those days before the flood, people were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage, up to the day Noah entered the ark. And they knew nothing about what would happen until the flood came and took them all away. That is how it will be at the coming of the Son of Man. Even though Noah was preaching and teaching for 130 years, they still didn't know what was about to occur. 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, 1-5. This is what Paul wrote. Now, brothers and sisters, about times and dates, we do not need to write to you. You know very well that the day of the Lord will come like a thief in the night. While people are saying peace and safety, destruction will come on them suddenly as labor pains on a pregnant woman, and they will not escape. These are the things that are going on as the seal, as we talked about. They'll be having peace and safety, and they'll be eating and drinking, and they will not be suspecting the golden censer to be cast down. We also went through the trumpets and how these trumpets were the warnings from God. The first four trumpets in Revelation are national disaster or natural disasters. They each destroy 1/3 of the earth, sea, waters, and sky, while the final three trumpets focus on humanity. So here's a quick summary of them. First trumpet, the earth, hail and fire mixed with blood are hurled down, burning up 1/3 of the earth, 1/3 of trees, and all the green grass. And as we talked about last week, this is mercy. 1/3. He could have taken it all, as we read in scripture. I could have wiped you all out, but instead, he only takes 1/3 at this time because it's a warning. These are warnings. Second trumpet, the sea. A massive burning mountain is thrown into the ocean, turning 1/3 of the sea into blood, killing 1/3 of marine life, and destroying 1/3 of the ships. Again, warnings. The third trumpet, the waters. A blazing star named Wormwood falls from heaven, poisoning 1/3 of all the fresh water. Rivers and springs caused many to die from the bitterness of the water. The fourth trumpet was the sky. 1/3 of the sun, moon, and stars are struck and darkened, reducing daylight and nighttime visibility by 1/3. The fifth trumpet, first woe, is demonic locusts. We went through this also. A fallen star opens the bottomless pit, releasing swarms of demonic locusts with stings like scorpions. The sixth trumpet is the second woe, the army. 4 angels bound at the Euphrates River are released to assemble a massive army of 200 million mounted troops, killing 1/3 of mankind. They still refuse to repent. Seventh trumpet, final warning, is final kingdom. This trumpet announces the beginning of the bowls. This seventh trumpet, like the seventh seal, announces the bowls to come. Each of these at the end announces the next set about to occur. The seventh seal announces the seven trumpets. The seventh trumpet announces the seven bowls. And here's a summary of the bowls. First bowl, foul, malignant sores poured onto the land. It stands for the physical deterioration of the people that showed their allegiance to Satan, who took the mark of the beast. God is done. He has separated his people out, the believers from the non-believers, and these bowls are meant strictly for the people that took the mark. Second bowl, the sea turns to blood, poured into the ocean. It stands for the total death of the marine life. Every single living creature dies in the sea, and the water turns to thick blood. Third bowl, fresh water plagued, poured into rivers and springs because of the blood of the saints and prophets shed by Antichrist. This bowl targets the drinking water. Fourth bowl, scorching sun, poured into the sun. It stands for intense physical torment and disruption to life as we know it. The sun scorches humanity with fierce burning heat. Instead of people repenting, they cursed God. The fifth bowl, darkness on the beast's kingdom, poured directly onto the throne of the beast. It stands for the spiritual and political darkness, blindness of the Antichrist empire. The sixth bowl, the Euphrates, dried up in Armageddon, poured onto the great river Euphrates. It stands for the removal of the river and opens the land for the final battle. Demonic spirits, looks like frogs, and world armies are formed for the Armageddon. The seventh bowl, the ultimate earthquake and hail, poured into the air. It is done. This is the final demolition of humanity on earth. It flattens mountains, sinks islands, and 100-pound hailstorms fall to the earth. This is just a quick summary of these. We went over each one as they related to the 10 plagues of Egypt. Go back, read for yourself, study these 10 plagues of Egypt, as well as the seals, the trumpets, and the bowls. And know that these plagues and these things that are about to occur are from our Father. They are the final wrath. The plagues of Revelation were much more severe than the plagues of Egypt. But as we get into the Exodus, we start to understand why God did what he did with the plagues of Egypt, trying to get the people to turn from their false worshiping, as well as the Egyptians and the Israelites to turn from the mindset of oppression. This is the same thing that's going to happen at the end times as well. This is going to be our focus in these next series as we walk through the Exodus. We're going to talk about their mindset, what it took to change their mindset, and how God was healing them with each walk, test, and action. The Egyptian people and the Israelites leaving had a lot to overcome. We're going to walk through biblically what it was they had to overcome to get to the promised land. The Egyptians experienced generational trauma. They had been in slavery. The Israelites experienced generational trauma, as well as some of the Egyptians. They were in slavery as well. They had been in slavery for several generations. Let's turn to Kaylee, if you could read Exodus 1:11 through 14 for me, I would appreciate it.
Exodus 1:11. So they put slave masters over them to oppress them with forced labor, and they built Pithom and Ramis as store cities for Pharaoh. But the more they were oppressed, the more they multiplied and spread. So the Egyptians came to dread the Israelites and worked them ruthlessly. They made their lives bitter with harsh labor in brick and mortar and with all kinds of work in the fields. In all their harsh labor, the Egyptians worked them ruthlessly.
Yeah, it didn't just work them as slaves, but it tells us oppress them, force them into labor, and ruthlessly work them without any kind of relentlessness. They were just relentless on the people. They did not give them a break of any sort, and this went on and on for generation after generation. They had grown up dependent on Egypt, providing for them, even though they were treated with such disrespect and kept down with they were being oppressed. They still depended on Egypt for their provisions. They were quickly overwhelmed by what freedom meant. Fear and panic seeped into their thinking, and they blamed Moses and began to cry out. We read that in Exodus 17:4. Then Moses cried out to the Lord, "What am I to do with these people? They are almost ready to stone me." Their mindset, their heart condition, all of that, God tried to get moving in the right direction. Well, he could move them in the right direction with the plagues. He stepped them through each one of those plagues so he could get the Egyptians to turn from their worship, and he could get the Israelites ready for what they had to endure with the Exodus. They had faith, but they were also skeptical. The unknown basically was worse than the known. They knew what they had in Egypt. They didn't know what they had out there. Many times during the Exodus, they wanted to go back to the things they knew before and had before. They were a melting pot of different cultures and religious mindsets that led the friction in the group and the complaining that they did. It wasn't just the Israelites that went on the Exodus. We need to understand that. It was also people around the nation there, and some of the Egyptians, as we know, as we went through that study. Moses had a huge undertaking and did not feel that he was equipped to do the job, regardless of his relationship with God. The people's complaints became a huge burden to Moses. They weren't unified. They weren't a unified nation at the time of the Exodus. Therefore, they were called the mixed multitude. And the mixed multitude shared in the oppression of the time and possibly decided this was their chance as well to have freedom. They may not have just decided that God was the one true God, but this was their opportunity to seek freedom. We read in Exodus 12, Kaylee, if you could read Exodus 12:37 through 38.
Exodus 12:37. The Israelites journeyed from Ramesses to Succoth. There were about 600,000 men on foot, besides women and children. Many other people went up with them, and also large droves of livestock, both flocks and herds.
So many other people besides Israelites went up with them. there was 600,000 men on foot, and that's not counting the women and the children. And Moses was leading them. So that would be like herding a whole lot of cats over here, over there, getting them all going in the same direction. So they had different mindsets. They weren't unified. They weren't all Israelites. They didn't have, they could have not been worshiping God as the one true God. They had mixed people in with the Exodus. This same mixed multitude stood at Mount Sinai and accepted the same commandments and laws given to Moses. They camped together at the foot of Mount Sinai and would have experienced the thunder, smoke, and God's voice delivering the commandments, just as the Israelites had. Exodus, if you could read Exodus 12:48 through 49 for me, Kaylee.
Yep. A foreigner residing among you who wants to celebrate the Lord's Passover must have all the males in his household circumcised. Then he may take part like one born in the land. No uncircumcised male may eat it. The same law applies both to the native born and to the foreigner residing among you.
So there was both foreigners as well as Israelites. They didn't have the same culture. They didn't have the same belief system. They weren't following the laws of God, but they were going through into the Exodus. So after so many years, the foreigners, the mixed multitudes, integrated into the Israelites through marriage and adapted to the Israelites' way of living. They shared space together as a community. They gathered the same manna together. They moved together, and they finally either had complete assimilation or were divided out. They shared religion, and then others did not and began to separate themselves out. And we read in Deuteronomy 23, 7 through 9, it tells us, do not despise an Edomite, for the Edomites are related to you. Do not despise an Egyptian, because you resided as foreigners in their country. So at one time you were the foreigner, now they're the foreigner. The third generation of children born to them may enter the assembly of God. See, God stopped them from entering the assembly of God because they didn't have the same cultures. They didn't have the same beliefs. They weren't dedicated to the one true God, our Father. They had been separated from the Israelites, as we know, as we went through the 10 plagues of Egypt. God separated the people, but those that chose to go with God and with the Exodus, they left with them. However, later in Nehemiah 13:3, they use the words mixed multitude / foreigners to describe people who had not fully committed to the covenant. So at one point you read about the mixed multitude being together with the Israelites. They're moving together with them. And then at one point they're called, the same mixed multitude are separated from the Israelites and their assimilation into the Israelites. They decided, no, that's not the culture I want. That's not the lifestyle that I want. I'm not going to respect the feasts that are going on and the proper way of worship. I'm not going to do that. And they were separated out. Nehemiah, if you can read for me, Nehemiah 13, 1 through 3.
Yeah, I'm just gotta find it.
Yeah, it's a funny one.
And say I'm not familiar with the.
It's after Chronicles and Ezra, then Nehemiah. So after the 1st and 2nd Kings, you'll find it. Nehemiah 13, 1 through 3.
Okay. Nehemiah 13. On that day, the book of Moses was read aloud in the hearing of the people, and there it was found written that no Ammonite or Moabite should ever be admitted into the assembly of God, because they had not met the Israelites with food and water, but had hired Balaam to call a curse down on them. Our God, however, turned the curse into a blessing. When the people heard this law, they excluded from Israel all who were of foreign descent.
They were separated out. Now the mixed multitude is separated out. They're foreign. They're not Israelites now. And as we walk through the study of the Exodus, we will see the people dividing amongst themselves. We'll see this division. So that's why I wanted you to understand when we talk about mixed multitude foreigners, at one point, they were just among the Israelites, moving with them, walking with them, socializing, being in a community, camping together. And then when we get to a little further into it, they become separated out. And those who served God and those who went back to serving the false gods. This is very important to understand as we walk through the next weeks. It was by their own choice that they did not want to follow God's laws. They were all standing there at the time the commandments were read, but later on, they begin to separate out. They go back. The people that left Egypt were a fearful people wanting to return to Egypt. They left in such a hurry at the time that Pharaoh finally said go, that they did not wait for the bread to rise and therefore had unleavened bread. We read that in Exodus chapter 12, 37 through 41. So you can kind of see, Kaylee, if you could read that for us, you can kind of see how quickly they were, we're ready to go now. Let's go. They were so quick that the bread hadn't rised, and they were all grabbing the bread to have that unleavened bread along the way. Exodus 12.
So right,
go ahead.
I was saying, so this just right after it talks about the amount of people, and that doesn't count kids and their livestock and stuff. And then it says, with the dough the Israelites had brought from Egypt, they baked loaves of unleavened bread. The dough was without yeast because they had been driven out of Egypt and did not have time to prepare food for themselves.
Yep. And they had, now the length of time the Israelites people lived in Egypt was 430 years. And at the end of the 430 years, to the very day, it says, all the Lord's division left Egypt. Moses had the responsibility for all the people that came out of Egypt. And this included the Egyptians that were worshiping false gods and turned to the one true God because of God showing them through the plagues that he was the one true God and debunking all the false gods. He had the responsibility of those people as well as the other people from around the nations. It wasn't just the Israelites. Mm-hmm. I think we got that now. Pharaoh let the people go as they were all burying their firstborn. Exodus 12, 29 through 30. At midnight, the Lord struck down all the firstborn in Egypt, from the firstborn of Pharaoh, who sat on the throne, to the firstborn of the prisoner who was in the dungeon, and the firstborn of all the livestock as well. Pharaoh and all his officials and all the Egyptians go up during the night, and there was loud wailing in Egypt, for there was not a house without someone dead. And that leads us into the Exodus. Kaylee, if you can read Exodus chapter 12, 31 through 42.
Okay. Just one thing on the house, that there was not a house without someone dead, just in case somebody's on that didn't get one of the previous chats,
Mhm.
that the first male of every house, that wasn't just the children, that included the spouses or the grandparents, whoever was in those houses and was a firstborn, they would be dead.
Yeah,
So,
it was devastation going on at that time. This was
Yeah.
the last plague, the 10th plague, and there was death all around. They had been warned over and over, and they were mourning, and they were done. They let the people go. So the people just packed up real quick and got out. They didn't know how many of the plagues there was going to be, or how much more they were going to have to endure, looking at the other Egyptians, because they had been separated out as we studied. They weren't affected by some of these plagues, and the Egyptians, they were affected by all of them.
Yeah. So it's like we talked about before, though. It's easy to look over that and think that it was just the firstborn son, of each, and there's more to it. Like in your household, your husband would pass away. My household, I would lose my husband and one of my sons,
Mhm.
and then it was the firstborn of all the livestock as well, of the cattle, not all livestock. I think it was just the cattle.
Yeah.
That they had lost the firstborn of that as well.
Yeah.
All right. Exodus, what did we say? 12:31?
12, 31 through 42.
Okay. During the night, Pharaoh summoned Moses and Aaron and said, "Up, leave my people, you and the Israelites. Go worship the Lord as you have requested. Take your flocks and herds as you have said and go, and also bless me." The Egyptians urged the people to
Stop
hurry.
there for a minute, Kaylee. That always cracks me up. How Pharaoh just like, go take all your stuff, but bless me in the meantime. I'm letting you go, but bless me anyway. If there's a God, then bless me anyway. Not that I'm going to ask for the Lord to bless me direct. I'm going to ask you to bless me. Sorry.
No, you're fine. And the Egyptians urged the people to hurry and leave the country, for otherwise, they said, we will die. So the people took their dough before the yeast was added and carried it on their shoulders in kneading troughs wrapped in clothing. The Israelites did as Moses instructed and asked the Egyptians for articles of silver and gold and for clothing. The Lord had made the Egyptians favorably disposed toward the people, and they gave them what they had asked for. So they plundered the Egyptians. The Israelites journeyed from Ramesses to Succoth. There were about 600,000 men on foot, besides women and children. Many other people went up with them, and also large droves of livestock, both flocks and herds. With the dough the Israelites had brought from Egypt, they baked loaves of unleavened bread. The dough was without yeast because they had been driven out of Egypt and did not have time to prepare food for themselves. Now the length of time the Israelite people lived in Egypt was 430 years. At the end of the 430 years, to the very day, all the Lord's divisions left Egypt. Because the Lord kept vigil that night to bring them out of Egypt, on this night, all the Israelites are to keep vigil to honor the Lord for the generations to come.
So he finally let them go. He was done. The 10th plague put them under. He said go. They left quickly, and they didn't have time to even pack all of their things. They plundered the Egyptians as God had instructed, and allowed the Egyptians to be favorable to go ahead and do that. They didn't resist. They gave them all of their things, silver, gold, clothing, and away they start. And that was the beginning. Moses has struggled. He struggled with his calling to get all of the people together and moving in the Exodus. Moses had a huge undertaking to accomplish, but God was with him. He did as the Lord asked him to do with Pharaoh and the 10 plagues of Egypt. But this was just the beginning of his obedience. Sometimes we think when we do these things for the Lord that, okay, I did what you wanted me to do. Now we're good. And he's like, no, I've got other things for you to do.
There's the introduction. That was just the start of that.
That's just the beginning. And Moses, that was a huge undertaking for Moses. He had to get through his own personal oppressions and things that were holding him back from fully believing in the Lord and fully putting all his faith into what the Lord had in store for him. He had to go through his self-doubt and his lack of obedience, his lack of belief. He had to clean up his own personal heart, and all of these things matter to God. And
not to just even mention the fact that, a couple chapters back, right? He's coming back to a life he's already left for 40 years.
Yeah.
And so he had to go speak in front of Pharaoh, not knowing what was going to happen to him for being a return, wanted murderer.
Yep.
And all of that as well.
Yep. He had a lot to overcome personally with all of that, but he did it. He approached Pharaoh. He went through the 10 plagues. He sat with the Israelites.
And in the beginning of it, right, he communicated what he needed or what he felt he needed from God.
That's a good point.
He didn't just do it blindly or didn't show his humanity of needing, like, God, I don't know if I can do this. I can't talk well. God provided his brother then, whom he had, wasn't around, reconciled that relationship to then use his brother to be the communicator, and he continuously talked and had that, that definite personal relationship, asking and talking about his struggles and what he wasn't confident in. And it wasn't just like Moses, like, yeah, I got this. And just like, I can handle it. Tell me what you want me to do, Lord. I can take care of it. No, he was a humble servant who was scared, but didn't not want to do what God's asking, but was unsure on how he could fulfill it, knowing that it needed to be done, and then
and it's a great example of God doesn't tell us everything, and it's for our own good. Because imagine if he downloaded to Moses, okay, this is what you're gonna do, and Moses would have been so overwhelmed back here that he would have said, no, I am not doing that.
And it's like what I said, like, weeks ago, was what if, God told him there's going to be 10 plagues. Would he go into each one fully confident, thinking, well, this may be the last one, and he gave each one of them his all, the full. And then, when he was asked by Pharaoh to pray for him, he still prayed. And we were talking about, like, there was the changes that were made, like, well, maybe because we left all of the frogs, that's why he didn't cave. So how about this time we don't leave one fly, like we just let them all leave after and see if that changes. Where if he knew nothing's going to change until this happens, until the firstborn are all killed, would like, he couldn't have all that information all at once. That's just like, we couldn't, because you can't fathom it. You can't wrap your mind around it. Or, a lot of us struggle to see the big picture of anything.
Yeah.
Like, we all just live in the day or in that moment and don't, see circumstances or what could happen, consequences, like, we just go day by day. So yeah, he had to be given it in parts.
In small dosages, as we do.
Mm-hmm.
If we were all given the big picture all at once and everything that we were going to do, the things we had to suffer, the things that were good, if we knew all of the map, so to speak,
Mm-hmm.
would we really intentionally go down certain paths? No, we would intentionally try to avoid them. Oh no, that path right there, that is such a rocky path, Lord.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to stumble. I'm going to fall. I'm going to crack my head on the rock. I'm going to, I'm going to avoid that one. And no, the Lord gives us these piece by piece things that we can endure and still do his will. He knows us well enough to know that we cannot handle it all at once. Some of us think that we can, but we can't.
Well, it's like, take Larry, if somebody would have told him, 20 years, even 15 years ago, hey, you're going to be a pastor. He'd be like, a pastor of what? Because I don't believe in any of this hocus pocus, whatever.
Yeah.
And it would have been a complete, I would say more of a turn from God, I resent you telling me, that this fictional character can change my life. I resent you more.
How about this one?
Well, she did the takeoff.
How about this one? Sorry. In order to get to the pastorhood, you're going to have to go through a whole big bout of cancer. And you're going to go through this transformation of body. You're going to have to struggle with it. You're going to almost lose your life, but it's going to be a testimony. You can use that as a perfect example as well, as many of us have many other examples. If we knew what we're going to go through, if I knew when I married your dad, if I knew what I was going to go through in order to get on the other side to completely surrender once again to the Lord, would you want to do that? Oh yeah, I willingly go and do that. Mm-hmm. Not necessarily. We might try to alter what God is doing in his will for our life. I'm not going to go down that path. I'm going to go down this one. That one looks way too much for me right now. I don't think I can handle it mentally, physically, spiritually. I just can't. Even with your help, Lord, I can't go down that way. Kim is commenting great things over here. She likes the fact that we brought up, Kaylee, you brought up the firstborn being more than just the firstborn babies. We talked about that in previous studies. That's important to understand, that it was adult people as well as children. And her other comment is, some of us think we can, but we can't. And great point, twin. Thanks, sis. Yes, we think we can, but we can't. And we have in our mind that we're this strong, independent individual, able to handle all things until those things happen. And then we might have, if we had that whole picture laid out, pick a different road. And that's not what our Lord has designed for us. He knows us. He knows every hair on our head. And the Lord chose Moses to lead the people out. He knew Moses would. And that's part of it. Are you willing to do what the Lord has put in front of you? Or are you going to shrink back, take another path because maybe it appears to be too hard? God had promised the people a land full of milk and honey, but the people had to be willing to go, willing to leave what they knew and what they had come accustomed to. They had lost their freedom, but in their minds, they gained so much more. See, this was the problem. They lost their freedom, but in their minds, they thought they gained so much more with what the Egyptian was providing. Now they gained their freedom, and in their minds, they lost so much more. You see the flip? And this is what God had to slowly walk them through. If God would have given Moses the full picture, and he gave the Israelites and the foreigners, the mixed multitude, the map, nah, I'm going back. This is way too long a period of time, and I'm never going to get there anyway.
Right,
So
because
what is
that
the
whole
point?
first generation of it weren't allowed to make it. So
No.
yeah. So,
What is the point of all of this? No, I am turning back. I'm going back to what I know, and I'm good with that. See, but God doesn't do that. That's not how he works. He's not going to give us that full picture. We're going to go to Numbers 14, chapter 2 through 4. Kaylee, if you could read that for me.
That's why everybody, you get to a point and you're like, man, if I knew what I know now,
Absolutely.
I would have done so much. I would have done this so different. And
that's why he's trying to make us understand the choices that we make. What do I always tell you, Kaylee? What you choose today affects your tomorrow. And that is what I have told my kids from the time they were born. What you choose today is going to affect you tomorrow. So choose wisely. And that's what God is trying to tell the people. What you're choosing today is affecting your tomorrow. I'm trying to get you to choose right and to choose better so you can make better choices, because it's going to affect you.
all right, Numbers 14, what was it? I'm sorry.
That's okay. 2 through 4.
All the Israelites grumbled against Moses and Aaron, and the whole assembly said to them, if only we had died in Egypt or in this wilderness. Why is the Lord bringing us to this land only to let us fall by the sword? Our wives and children will be taken as plunder. Wouldn't it be better for us to go back to Egypt? And they said to each other, we should choose a leader and go back to Egypt.
They were already ready to go. They were ready to separate themselves out and go back to Egypt. They were done. Had they have known from all of that information from the get-go, they wouldn't even have left.
Right.
They wouldn't even have tried. They would have stayed right there where they were, and there would be no attempt to get to the promised land. And the story would be completely different. But the Lord knew, even for us, what we need as individuals to be able to see their story, understand their story, and see what it took in order for them to begin the Exodus. And why this is so important, I want to do this series according to the Exodus, looking at it from their healing point of view. What it took them to overcome these things, what they overcame personally, as well as a community and as a nation, but also what they had to overcome, but what they received from overcoming. Because it's so important that we understand that when we let go of these strongholds that we have and these trauma-based things that we hold on to, that we find comfort in, that there is freedom on the other side of those things. There's peace, there's joy, there's love, there's God. And God is just trying to get them to maneuver through the land in order to go through the things that they needed to go through, just like we do. It's no different. We have to go through certain processes in order to recognize our trauma, get rid of our trauma, talk about the things that we've been through in order to see and get healing on the other side and replace those things with the fruit of the Spirit. And that's what God wants us to replace, all of that stuff that we've endured along with our exodus, our journey to the promised land, and what that journey looks like, and what we have to overcome from oppression and depression and all of those things that are keeping us from the freedom of the exodus that the Lord is trying to get us to go through, the transformation of that exodus. And I hope that we get there with these studies. I really do. In Exodus 16, 2 through 3, in the desert, the whole community grumbled against Moses and Aaron. The Israelites said to them, "If only we had died by the Lord's hand in Egypt. There we sat around pots of meat and ate all the food we wanted. But you have brought us out into this desert to starve this entire assembly to death." The food was important. They forgot about the hard labor, the relentlessness of the labor, the oppression. They forgot about it in this moment. In Exodus 13, 43 through 51, the Lord said to Moses and Aaron, "These are the regulations for the Passover meal. No foreigner may eat it. Any slave you have brought may eat it after you have circumcised them. But a temporary resident or a hired worker may not eat it. It must be eaten inside the house. Take none of the meat outside of the house. Do not break any of the bones. The whole community of Israel must celebrate it. A foreigner residing among you who wants to celebrate the Lord's Passover must have all the males in his household circumcised. Then he may take part like one born in the land." There's a avenue. See, the Lord keeps an open door, a way of getting to his nation, to getting to salvation. He leaves that door open. He gives an opportunity. He doesn't close and slam the door. No, you cannot become part of the nation. He gives a way to become part of the nation, even if you're a foreigner, even if you don't believe. No uncircumcised male may eat it. The same law applied to both to the native born and to the foreigner residing among you. All the Israelites did just what the Lord had commanded Moses and Aaron. And on that very day, the Lord brought the Israelites out of Egypt by their divisions. He gave an avenue for people to be saved, to be opened and free, to release themselves of the bondage, of the oppression, of the depression, of the relentlessness labor that they were under, to follow the one true master, God. And he gave them that avenue. If you do this, there's always work to be done. If you do this, then this will happen. If you don't do this, then this is not going to happen. We can't, we just read in Naaman, I think I'm saying his name right. Let me look it up real quick. Naaman was King Ahab's servant, commander, and he had leprosy. So he was a little maiden girl. She was a captive little maiden girl, goes to the queen and says, "I know somebody. His name is Elisha, a prophet that can cure him of leprosy." Now, when he goes to Elisha's door, he knocks on the door, and good morning, Sister Mikkel, and he knocks on the door, and he's expecting Elisha to come out. And Elisha sends a messenger, "Go down to the Jordan and wash 7 times, and you'll be clean. Your leprosy will be clean." And the first thing that Naaman says is, where's Elisha? I was expecting Elisha. Then I was expecting him to just wave basically a wand, wave his hand over my leprosy, and it all just go away. You see, there's got to be work before the blessing. You've got to do something. You've got to be willing. There's an action that has to take place. It's not just, I thought, but there's action behind what takes place. And Naaman was reluctant. Here he is. He's the one that needs to be healed. But his pride got in the way. He's reluctant to go down to the river to wash 7 times, to follow the instruction. He wanted the instruction directly from the prophet. Why should I listen to some messenger that you sent? But the messenger, his servant says, "Hey, do you think you need to listen? Do you think maybe if you want your leprosy healed, that maybe you should listen to the instructions that Elisha is giving you, whether it was through him directly or not?" And so he listens, and the leprosy was healed. But what I'm saying, or trying to say, is we have high expectations of the Lord, but yet we're unwilling to do anything that it takes on our end. We're unwilling to put the work in. And the Lord wants us to put the work in. You've got to see the work, the action behind it. And Sister Kimberly, she writes, they preferred that oppression. They didn't forget about it. That oppression came with comforts that they viewed in high esteem and wanted the oppression, if that's how they kept their comforts. Exactly. I don't have to do that because I'm being oppressed. I don't have to do that because I'm in a depressive state. I don't have to do anything. And the Lord wants action, because he needs action from us to change our mindset, to change our heart set, to change our lives. He needs us to be living the life that he wants us to live. Whether that's changing things. We've had to change a lot of things in our life in order to follow God. Are you willing to give up those things? Are you willing to follow him and change your life for him? That's what Moses did when he was stumbling and bumbling around, saying, no, Lord, I'm not going to do all of that. But yet he did. He went ahead and did it anyway, because the Lord knew he would. He knew his heart. He said, I'll give you help. I'll give you your brother. I'll give you your daughter. I'll give you your husband. I'll give you the people that you need in order to make sure that you get the mission done. I'll give you that, but I'll be with you too. Mm-hmm. These are the things that we can quickly forget, that he has set up people in our lives to be able to keep us on track, to keep us motivated, to keep us moving in the direction that the Lord wants us to do. Down that path, whether it's a rocky path or a smooth path, whatever that path is, however it looks, we've got to go down that path. That's why it's narrow. People see it and go the other way. He's not going to give us more than we can handle. We've read that in scripture. And he didn't give Moses more than he could handle at the time. If he gave them all the information, or all the Israelites, they would not have gone through that Exodus and that what they needed to, in order to heal, in order to be ready for the mindset to take the journey. They would have gone back or never left at all. Any other comments, Kaylee?
No, I'm just playing the continuation of what happens, and how things, like, just a simple down to like Aaron being picked as the high priest. Like if Moses would have known that, from the beginning, like as things were going and they're building the tabernacle and they're, doing all of these things, if he would have known what the ending was. But by the time that came, he accepted it and was like, yeah, that's the right choice, like,
yeah.
so, yeah.
Yeah. And that's exactly how we're going to walk through these next studies. I hope anybody in Zoom care to make a comment before we get off. I hope that this gives a good beginning of what we're going to talk about with the Israelites and the foreigners and the multitude of people and the mixed cultures and the mixed communities, and how wonderful God laid that out. I think it's wonderful. He's like, I don't want you Israelites getting a big head right off the bat. I'm going to mix you up. You're going to have to deal with other cultures and other people and other beliefs, but you're going to see you're going to all be standing there as the commandments are given to Moses. So I hope you've enjoyed this study. We'll see you next week, Tuesday at 9:00 a.m. Bye-bye.